Good.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
I like it.
Cool.
I'm fine with it.
All right. Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Well, let's get into this conversation.
Yes.
Welcome to the Soul Tapes podcast.
Let's
My
go.
name is Adam Cruz.
My name is Antonio Reyes.
Man, this week I went to probably the place that we are all going to the most, the grocery store.
That's right.
And
Probably the only place that we were able to go for a period of time.
yes, yeah, that was like our getaways, our little
Right.
date nights where we're going to Target or
Right. One of our friends that work in Target was saying like she would hate it because people would just go and just wander around.
Yeah.
Because there was no
Yeah.
other place to go.
Not really buying anything.
Yeah.
Yep. That was definitely us a few times. Gotta admit. But yeah, this week I had it's funny how when you have like these random conversations
Yep.
with people, I ended up having a conversation with the clerk, the cash register, and this guy, he was just, I was literally there to buy like 2 items, and he ends up, just kind of bringing up. Actually, I ended up kind of walking into a conversation. So he was just finishing a conversation with the lady in front of me, and then I kind of interject with him because he's just sharing about one of the most difficult things about working. He said this year isn't necessarily just having to physically be outside, but he was saying that one of the things that's been the most frustrating is dealing with people. And specifically, he was kind of going on and sharing about, the difference between someone who's really nice and someone who might come off as rude or disrespectful. And he was saying that it has a lot to do with the way that they speak, the words that they were using.
Yeah.
And he was having these interactions. And I found it really funny because I was like, this interaction he was referring to probably happened a day or two, maybe a week ago. And he's still bringing it up to me,
Yeah.
a random stranger, right? But it started to get me to think about the idea of just how powerful our words are.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, this could be a really good conversation that we can get into because I'm starting to realize more and more how much the when we speak in the words and how we communicate can have such a traumatic effect on people, where it doesn't just affect one person,
Yeah.
but it has a ripple effect on people's lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I know. No, I think that's such a great conversation. Just to begin with, where my firstborn hat
Oh, yeah.
represented
It's
over
nice.
here. And there's no. Do you already saw all of them?
These are. I have some more, and I'm gonna get some more
Exclusive.
coming. They're a little exclusive right now, so
Hey.
hard to get. Yeah,
Anyway, so going back to the conversation we were having, I think that's an important conversation because I think like nowadays we take in lightly what we communicate to people, because sometimes it might not be through conversations face to face, but it might be through the comments that we put on social media. It might be through what we communicate through text messages. It might be through whatever other avenue, And because we no longer have to be face to face sometimes, we take lightly the way we communicate to people. So we're no longer responsible, I guess, sometimes because we don't want to, I'm just going to communicate my truth.
yeah.
And we can dig in more into it. But I think it's such
Yeah, and
an
I think
important conversation.
thinking about how we communicate online, I think what makes it easier for us to be, I would say, a little more ruthless or raw, is where we're writing words, but there's really not a full person, face to the name, like you know what I mean? Like sometimes, that little icon we see, like we don't recognize that sometimes as a real live person.
Yep.
We just make these comments because of how we feel,
Yep.
and because we really feel the need to share our opinions.
Right.
We're not taking into consideration how that affects someone. And a lot of times, for me, when I was thinking about this interaction I had with this guy at the store, I'm sure, in those situations when dealing with customers, as a customer, you don't always think that when you get frustrated because something goes wrong or
Yes.
something, you're kind of, shifting the blame on the worker. You don't realize how those types of interactions can really affect someone. Even though you're trying to be, honest or feel like, oh man, well, you're justified because they messed up or something happened or, the chips weren't in the right aisle or something like that. Little things like that, but we use that as a way to make
Yep.
comments and use our words in a way that actually can really hurt and affect people.
Yeah, because we feel entitled to say,
Yeah.
well, I'm a customer, right?
Yeah.
And they need to serve my needs.
Yeah.
So I feel like we have built a culture in a society, at least in the United States. I can't speak for other places, but where obviously we feel entitled to be ruthless, and not have no compassion,
Yeah.
no empathy for the person,
Yeah.
and just be harsh,
Yeah.
Now, going back to what you were saying, and when we were talking about social media,
Yeah.
I think the reason sometimes we're willing to be so harsh, because I feel like for us sometimes it's more important to communicate our opinion than the person. When we don't know the story of the other person, when we don't know who that person is, when we don't know maybe the background of that person, it's easier for us to just throw these comments without compassion because we don't know the person. Sometimes, sometimes perhaps it's our friends or whatever. But what I'm saying is that we have built this culture based on feeling entitled just to communicate our truth or communicate what we feel because we feel like, they need to know.
Yeah.
They need to know, and they need to know my opinion.
Yeah.
They need to know why I'm right or whatever else it is, So
Well, I think what we end up doing is we're putting more worth and value on our words than we are on our friends and on the people that we're communicating with, which this is why this conversation to me is really interesting because I think that's part of the problem because our words do have power.
They do.
Our words do have worth and value.
Yes.
And that's why we should even more so be cautious on how we use them.
Man.
Because of the fact that just because it's because of the fact that our words have power and meaning and value that we need to be mindful because the person and the people that we're speaking to are even more valuable, are even more, we want to make them feel loved and respected, and everyone deserves that. And so we have to be mindful not to take what's inside of us, whether it's our own emotions or struggles or whatever we're going through on a particular day, and take that out on someone. Because even even just think about, because for me, like I'm a artist, music, I love writing. Even just that phrase, take it out on someone, like that's almost like you want to think like a violent like action phrase. So when we think about in our words, we're taking it out on somebody else. We're inflicting something on someone else, and that's why you think about how that can affect. It's going to obviously have a reaction into how things can actually begin to mess up somebody's day. So
and you said something very interesting. I don't know if you mentioned it already, but the effect that it has, right? That if you make a rude comment to someone in the store, working in the store, how that can be carried to other people around that person, co-workers, customers, family, as you go back home, anyone. And that can be carried away and had an effect on other people. So there's this connectedness that we need to be aware that if I'm gonna be just so hard on someone, I'm just gonna communicate and tell them the truth, quote unquote. Quote unquote.
Your truth in that moment.
Your truth, exactly. And they're gonna carry that away with other people. I think you and I have been under an incredible leadership, Pastor Josh and Pastor Noemi Chavez. And I think Pastor Noemi Chavez is the one who actually trained us in communication a lot, right?
Totally.
She's very thoughtful, very careful, many, many times. She doesn't allow us, and I say it in a nice way. In a nice way, what I mean is like she's caring because as communicators, we need to be thoughtful about what we communicate. She doesn't allow us just to be vague or just to throw up, to say whatever we want to say. She is aware of a full room with different perspectives, different ways of thinking, different backgrounds, right? And I feel like that has shaped me so much that that makes me so much more aware of what I'm communicating, not just as a preacher or as a pastor, but even as someone that is married, someone that is a son, someone that is a brother, someone that is a friend, right? That we need to be so careful in what we communicate. It's not just to communicate and throw up on people, but it's about how do you communicate things. And this is so much valuable in marriage.
Totally.
And marriage is like, man, you need to be very thoughtful because you can trigger the wrong feeling, not just for yourself, but for the other person. That I do believe that it's an important thing.
Yeah. Man, you said so much, and I have so many things that I want to say about all of that. Just to piggyback on the last thing you said, because I think when you're talking about relationships like that, those are, for us, the closest relationships that we have are with our spouses, right?
Yes.
And when you have an intimate relationship with a person, whether it's a spouse or a friend, your words hold even more weight and value. So that's where it's, again, going back to the fact that, do I want to take something out on this person that I love? And unfortunately, because we're holding back for the whole day when we're having those rough days and those tough days, and usually the person that ends up getting the grunt of that is the people that are closest to us.
Right, because we're in proximity with them right away.
Yeah, so, that's where, we always have to be mindful of our words and how we're able to choose to love people through our words. Because the one thing that earlier you were saying is the fact, you're kind of alluding to the fact that our words and when we choose to use them, I would say, in a negative way, they have consequences. Because you're saying like how they can impact so many people's lives.
Yes.
And so I think that is something that I think we're not cognizant of in the moment when we have those times where we want to just blurt out or our frustration or let's down. And to me, the reason why this conversation is so like nuanced and tough, because a lot of the times that when the person, like even just what I just said about in marriage, the person we're usually letting that out on isn't even the person who caused that hurt or pain or struggle.
Yes.
So like the clerk at the grocery store, are dealing with customers and people who are frustrated from something else, and then they get the wrath, So yeah, it's an interesting and tough thing to kind of think about.
Yeah, and I think for some reason, right, the people in proximity with us, we tend sometimes to be less careful with what we communicate, right?
Yeah, it's a safe space, right?
Right. We very impulsive sometimes. We can be very blunt and open, right? And more with our spouses because we feel like they know us, we know them. And I'm guilty of that in a sense that I can... my wife can become my trash can, right? Yeah. She can become
your
the
punching
person,
bag, right?
Right. Also that too, right? Where I come and I just throw everything on her. And she's a recipient of my anger and my frustration, my irritation, right? And it's not fair, right?
Yeah.
And because as a communicator, right, my gift and the art that I shape as words, I sometimes can be very rough with her, right? Yeah. Because I can change...
Because how to use them, right? Yeah.
I can change the narrative for my favor and then for my benefit, and I can hurt her, right? Let me just take a little bit back to it.
Yeah.
I remember, that was when I was maybe 21, 22, right? I was in a relationship with what is my wife now, Gabby. But I have no frame of a relationship. Like I was just going left and right. I was just, in other words, I was just playing around, with other girls.
You're young. You're trying to figure it out.
Yes.
I'll give you I'll give you some credit there.
Thank you. I just
but I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Right. I wasn't healthy in a relationship. I never seen something like that. So many times when she would come to me and she would have a reason and a great reason, right? She was right to blame me because I was actually, talking to other girls. Yeah. I will always find a way to change the narrative of my favorite and to become the victim. Yeah. So sometimes when she would come into the room and she will have a great reason to blame me, and she was right.
She got you.
She was right. I will always find a way to change the narrative on my favor, so that when we walk away from the room, she will feel like crap. because she blamed me for something that was not correct.
Yeah.
Right? So I always find a way to change the narrative. Now, taking it back to what we have. For some of us, that we have the gift of communication, not just on a communication level, right? On a stage level, right? But someone that actually can sit down and have a whole conversation, has language. And sometimes we use that to benefit ourselves and to prove our point. Because I know a lot of people, in a political way, and whatever else it is, we use our words just to communicate, improve our point. We need to be so careful with that, because we can become very selfish. We lack a lot of empathy, and we can just hurt people left and right.
Well, because what we're doing is we're choosing to win an argument or choosing to win in a debate situation, and we're choosing that over winning people over.
Oh,
and that's
yes.
where I think that we get really messed up in where we're at today. But one thing that I think is really interesting that you're talking about, like going back to Pastor Josh and Noemi and Pastor Noemi, really helping shape. I really look up to them because of the fact that
such a great communicators.
Yes, I've always been able to admire people who, like, when you're ever watching someone speak, whether it's on stage or in a podcast or on a video, and when the every single word that comes out of someone's mouth has meaning, has value, to me, you're always like, man, how do they do that, right? But I think it's people in positions like that, and again, doesn't have to be in a public platform, just having conversations. Yes. But when you know the weight and value and power of words, then not to abuse and use them in those moments, especially when you have a captive audience.
Yeah.
Because of the power of influence.
Yeah.
And the thing is, because words have the ability to influence people, we have to be mindful and cautious and check ourselves and our own, bias and opinions, and make sure that what we're communicating is truth.
Yes. And piggyback on what you were saying, right? Yeah. I remember the last time we were recording a video. I think you were there, I remember I finished my sermon completely, right? And I remember one of the things that I have trouble when I'm on stage, because the way I deal with being nervous is I hate awkward silences.
Yeah.
So I
embrace them.
Yes.
Yeah, because I teach, at Biola.
Yeah.
And I love those moments because students hate it.
Yes.
And for me, it's power. There's power in it.
So piggyback on that, for me, I hate him. And I think with your wife, we were having a conversation with Vanessa that we hate awkward silences. So we try to cover the 45 minutes or 50 minutes that we're communicating, right?
Yes.
We don't stop. We just, So anyways, one of the things that she communicates, and it's just so powerful, maybe basic, but I think to me, never really pay attention to it because I just go. She was like, I want you to pause. She told me, Pastor Noemi, I want you to pause. And even if you're paused too long, that's okay. Because you're letting people know that you care so much about them that you're willing to pause and be thoughtful in what you're communicating. Right? That you're caring about what you communicate and you're caring for the words that are going to come out of your mouth.
Yeah. And not to cut you off, but as a rapper, so we do the same exact thing because what I used to do kind of a very similar thing when I would write music. And what you want to do is that when you have a punchline, you have a line that you say, this is like the best line in the whole song. This is a really, really dope line.
Yeah.
When you do that and then you don't stop or you just keep going, you keep saying other things, you don't give time for the audience or the person to listen to actually catch it. You want to give time for it to breathe a little bit. You want to make it take a step, something to create space so that the people listening can actually catch it. So we do the same thing.
That makes a lot of sense. I never actually thought about that. But now that I'm actually go back to listen to the music, I can see that. But just to summarize the whole thing, I believe that we need to be more careful. We need to be more thoughtful. And you see something so key. We want to win arguments. We don't want to win people, right?
That's what we're doing. Yeah.
And many times, even if we are wrong, I'll say that. Even if we feel that we're wrong, but because our ego or whatever is going on inside of us, we don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
We rather go against it than say, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
You know what, I don't know. You know what, I never thought about that. You know what?
Yeah.
So we're so we don't care about no longer about the person. We care about us winning and
Yeah.
us being right. So, anyways, I think that going back to what you were saying, I do believe that the weight and the power of words, even in our faith, and we can probably talk about this a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But I think that it has so much weight that we haven't really thought about. Hey, when I'm communicating, what I'm saying can either create life,
Yeah.
or it can create.
Yeah.
It can kill something.
You're leading me exactly where I wanted to go. Because we spent a lot of time talking about some of the negatives and the struggles that we have. But the reality is that the reason why this conversation matters is because we have an ability to encourage and bring life to people through our words. And that is something that we have to make sure that we focus on and think about daily. Because, in the Bible, Proverbs, it says that the tongue brings life and death, and that we will reap it says people who love to talk will reap the benefits or reap the consequences of their words, right? So, and saying that wise words can bring satisfaction. So we have to realize that when we enter into conversations, like you're saying, not getting so focused on winning a debate or an argument, so much so that we would lose relationship with people. Because if we think about why are we here, why do we exist, why is our world built in a way where we have communities, where we have engagements, the fact that I can walk into a store and this person that I've never met before wants to have a conversation with me, it's because that when we wake up every day, we have an ability to affect people's lives. And every single person, can do that, whether it's with complete strangers or with family and friends. And I think sometimes like we were talking about, we give ourselves a break and say, okay, I'm done being nice to people now today. I'm over it. And we give ourselves permission to kind of like let that go.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we have to, why the weight of our words, has to be something that we constantly are thinking about, because of the fact that for me, I'm always thinking about how, okay, entering into difficult conversations, or one thing that I like to do a lot of, I don't know about, you, but I always like to, in certain situations, kind of like analyze people, because there's moments where you could see where people get down.
Yeah.
There's moments where you could see, like, for example, like, when we play like soccer or something like that,
Yeah.
when you lose a match or a game, that you're usually feeling deflated and defeated, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times some people, end up, getting the negative words or the, man, no, you messed up, you did this. And especially in a team environment, right? When you start blaming
other people, yeah.
But what happens when you're able to, when you have that person who's encouraging, uplifting, hey, let's keep it going. And that's a big thing, because it's all mental, right? In our mentality, where like, how do we stay engaged? How do we stay connected to the goal, which is to win, right?
Yeah. And I think there's man, and everything has to, I feel like, let's talk about a lot about that, right? Like, when you have someone that is willing to encourage other people, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see the difference between encouraging other people and someone who's very frustrated and upset and talking down to people, right? And I think that we have an option, obviously, in life, right? Where we can be that piece that encourages people, lift up people, right? To affirm people. One of the things that I would love to do, that I haven't actually done in a long time, but I remember my wife would get frustrated sometimes with me, because every time that I would go to a place, store, whatever, I will see someone else, and I will always like to affirm them. And whatever it is, and their clothes. If I see their shoes, their shirt, their whatever it is, I will say, "Hey, man, bro, I love your shoes." So, hey, man, I love.
See, you're my favorite kind of person, because you know how very picky I am with clothes.
I'm
always waiting for someone to compliment me in public.
That's true. Hey. So, anyways, I will remember that. I would love to do that. I haven't done it in a long time, but I would love to affirm people. And I think that was always a way to get into their life. Oh, all right. Thank you. Appreciate it. That I actually feel like we lack that a lot. We lack the person that affirms other people, right?
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, we don't know what that person is going through, but I feel we have a choice to make.
Yeah.
Do we want to lift up our people around us, or do we want to be always the people that talks down? If you're very smart, you talk.
Salud.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. Gracias. We can be that person that always is very smart and always talks down to people, and I've always been around many times. Nobody wants to be around negative people,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be around people that are always like complaining about things,
Yeah.
And they can translate as like, I'm just saying the truth. I'm just saying what is real, right?
I love those excuses.
Yeah, and it's like, nah, man. Like, I'm always like, they always wants to go against what is actually, going on. But we need to be conscious of that. Now, there's a difference. I feel there's spaces where you can actually be very honest, and very raw with what you're feeling.
Yeah, totally.
But don't live life that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Because for both of us, we have those circles. I think for each other, we can become those people, where we can be very honest, very raw, complain about things.
Yeah.
But we're not going to carry that through our lives, because we understand the power of our words, the power of our influence, right? So I know we find those small places where we can be very raw, negative, speak the truth in a sense, so we can actually deposit those things, our trash can, whatever that room it is, and actually carry our life where we can keep encouraging other people, speak life on people, and not become the people that are actually creating, negative and very dark environments.
Yeah, and I think, we bring this up a lot, but I think it points to the fact of how valuable it is. But it's something that I had to learn really intentionally, especially after getting married, is that you don't, just because you're married or in a significant, in a relationship with a significant other, it doesn't mean that because a lot of people tend to do this, is, let go of their friends or not make time for certain people. And I've made that mistake plenty of times, but as I've gotten older, I started to realize how intentional I needed to be, because of the fact that those types of friendships and relationships, having guys' nights and having times where we can just go out and have those types of conversations that you're saying in a safe space, in a safe environment, with people who understand you, people who know you, and are understanding that your words that are coming out are not reflective of who you are as a person, but maybe the things that you're experiencing in the moment. And that's the thing, is that we try to validate our frustrations and in certain instances, and that is where we end up hurting people who really are kind of just getting caught in the crossfire of what we might be going through in life at the moment.
And I think we were talking about this at the beginning, like previous to recording the podcast. How the Jewish community will see that words create new futures, create new realities, and to me that's such an exciting thought, right? To me, it's also intriguing to think that I can create new realities with my words, right? That is connected to when at Genesis at the beginning, right? When God speaks, and the world is created, the universe is created, but not also creating. He brings order into those things, right? Whatever he speaks, he brings order, he brings structure, So
in the beginning was the Word, right?
There you go. Yeah. And so I do believe that what we actually speak, we're creating some sort of new reality.
Yeah.
If I can create new realities for someone that is around me, saying, hey, they probably never seen that reality in themselves, so they're actually they're able to create that reality.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
What if I'm actually speaking that into that person because I see it?
Yeah.
What if actually I'm speaking that over someone else's? Yeah. What if I'm actually speaking that over my own life? Yeah. The power of words and creating new realities and reimagine reimagine your future, because that's what God would do with the prophets, right?
Yeah.
He will give them a word, and the prophets will reimagine the future and and their present, right? Maybe their present, it doesn't look like what they're reimagining, but that's where God is trying to take them.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to be so conscious, so aware of what we communicate, because we can either create life or we can destroy people, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think about it like it's like God gave us a superpower,
Yeah.
and we have the responsibility to use it wisely.
Yep.
You know, we have the ability to see things in people and create something that may or may not be there yet. Is, you know, speaking positivity into them, speaking, hey, you know, you have the ability to you know, make your dreams come true. You have the ability to be a good son, a good husband, a good wife, a good father, a good, you know, employee. You know, you have the ability to do this. We could speak these words into you. You are beautiful. You are loved. You are these things, because you may not hear it from people around you. But when we can see people and say, hey, you know, you may not feel this way right now, but I see potential in you. And I would encourage, like you're saying, like, I love the idea of being, and I try to do that too. Like, you know, have conversations with people in public where it's like, I don't know you, but I like your shoes. You know, I don't know you, but that's a dope outfit, whatever. You know, even those little comments to me, because again, like when the people do it to me, like it brightens my day. I'm like, man, like, you know, it makes me feel like I was seen, you know, that whatever. So like those types of moments, I think I know for me, I often take my words for granted. That's another thing that we can tend to do, is we stay silent because we think our words don't have meaning, which I think is another lie that we tend to believe, which is why I think God has given us the ability to speak life into people, which is, I think we have to take that responsibility.
Man, you're so right. You know, like perhaps we don't feel like we have nothing to contribute to whatever the circle we at, or to the table, you know. And I feel that many times we don't take responsibility for what we say, you know. We're going to go through life, you know, hurting people left and right. We can be known by the person that encourages people. Or we can be the person that hurts someone else's, right? And perhaps I'm speaking something. Oh, this is where I wanted to go. I remember a while ago, changing the conversation, but it's in the same, and you know, it just triggered something. I remember the early, 2010 or something like that. There's this song, you know, in the church environment. It's called "How He Loves Us." I'm sure you probably heard it. How He Loves Us, and that's kind of like the main thing, you know, the song. How He loves us, how He loves us. And I remember one of my friends. Would tell me, man, that's such a narcissistic song. That's what he told me. Yes, like, that's such a narcissistic song. It's just about us. This is not about God. You know, this is not about God. This is about us. And it's us. And I was like, and I remember that stayed with me. Through the years I thought about, I was like, man, I love that song. And the reason I love that song is because perhaps I never heard that my dad loved me. Right? Yeah. I never heard no one telling me I love you that way. And I never heard that from someone that cares for me saying, hey, I love you. Right? So to me, to hear that the creator of the universe and my God says, I love you, and He loves us, to me is like, it's such a powerful thing to deposit in someone else's life, right? So going back to the power of the words, right? We don't know what people are going through, or the background of people, that perhaps for us to say, hey, man, you look good. Hey, man, you're seen. Maybe you're loved. Perhaps they never heard in their lives something like that. Not even a sentence like that. So I think that's such an important thing, because we continuously beat up people by the things that we lack, by the things that they don't do, by the things that they don't achieve. Maybe that be through parents, through family, through people close to you, through the church sometimes, you know, maybe I mean, we have the opportunity to not being part of a community that beats up people.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people grew up in those environments.
Yep.
So perhaps we never heard that, So I do believe that we live in a place where you, through music and through communication, myself as well, and through this podcast, we believe that we're creating and speaking your realities on other people's that perhaps they never heard in their lives.
Yeah, totally. I love it, man. I mean, that's where I think we have to. I think whenever we're going to speak, especially when we're having conversations with people, we should always ask ourselves, is this going to bring life? Is this going to bring death?
Yes.
Is this going to be beneficial? Making sure we understand who we're communicating with, how we communicate with them. I know it sounds like maybe a lot of work, but I think we're just trying to reaffirm and reiterate the value and the power of our words. And I love that you bring up the example of a song. It's always funny to me because my mind went somewhere else when you started talking about that, because I always get frustrated as a person who, songwriter, is like people struggle with songs because they want them to be written in a certain way. Everyone has their own opinion and their objective thoughts on, or subjective thoughts on, like, if you're going to write a song about God, it has to be done this way. If you're going to write a song about, a worship song, it needs to sound like this, and for me, I always get frustrated with those moments because I just find it funny how someone would go to, oh, that's very narcissistic of us to say how he loves us. But I think you're exactly right in saying sometimes when you're in, because the thing is, to me, songs, and the reason why we fall in love with certain songs, because oftentimes certain songs are very indicative of seasons that we've gone through. Yeah. And so when you think about that specific song, you're not thinking about, how, you may not be thinking about how well written that song is or how beautiful that singer is. It's going to take you back to a place of your life of when, man, you needed to hear those words the most, or man, you were in this moment of struggling or feeling down, and those words brought life to you, which is exactly what we're talking about. And so I love the fact that even through music and songs that we can actually get to experience life in those moments. So yeah, man, I mean, to me, I'm a big advocate on having the creative freedom to write music in a way that, because if you, like, as a writer, if you feel something, even as someone who writes, conversations and preaching and things like that, if you feel something, more than likely there's probably someone else who knows exactly how you feel. And because you have the ability to communicate, then you have, in my opinion, especially if it's honoring to God, have the obligation to speak those words. So, I think that's really critical, man.
Yeah. I think my last thought will be this. Even if for some of us, we have the responsibility of having people around us, right? That we're leading people, volunteers, even people that work for us, right?
Yeah.
Or work with us. Even when you have to have tough conversations, because it's not always going to be pretty, right? We might have to face some tough conversation. I hate tough conversations. We both. I don't know, but we do because we're peacemakers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm right there with you, man.
Because we're peacemakers. We don't want to disturb the peace.
Nope.
But I had to learn this, at the beginning of my stages of when I church plan, that I will avoid, the tough conversations. I remember hearing a podcast about that, So when you actually have to have tough conversations with your wife, your kids, co-workers, people that you're leading, whatever it is, be thoughtful. Write it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you just go ahead and just have a conversation just vague, spontaneous, I find much value in someone that brings their write it down and thought about what they were going to say and what they were going to communicate, If it's tough for you to have tough conversations, write it down. Be thoughtful. Communicate exactly what you're going to say. And even tell the person, I remember telling the person, hey, look, I wrote everything down. I wrote what I was going to tell you because I want to be thoughtful. I don't want you to think that I'm coming from this place where I'm just emotional. Yeah. I'm just letting you know this. So even when we're having tough conversations, think about it. Take a moment, Don't just go ahead and explode emotionally on someone's life. Yeah. Be thoughtful, even if it's a tough conversation.
Yeah, I think that's really good, man, because, it's not that you can't, because we are emotional creatures. We have emotions, and I think that's a really, really great tangible thing that we can think about as far as how can we communicate through not disregarding our emotions.
Yes.
And so I would say writing it down, or something that I do a lot, is kind of like role play. Like how, I'll actually like go through and say, this is me kind of like, pretending the person is right here with me, and communicate. And I'll say everything that I would want to say to that person. And maybe half of it is like, I should never say any of that, because that's going to not come out right. But it helps me to kind of filter out, man, I got that out of my chest, and now let me figure out what should be said that's valuable, that's true to how I feel, but is not going to hurt or break that relationship. So I think, man, this topic is something that we can go on forever, man. I think there's so much that should be said and could be said, but overall, I think if we can take anything with us, it's just to value people, over arguments or debates, and to understand that our words can have the power to bring life or death and create futures. I love that.
There you go.
Yeah, man. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that conversation. We'll see you guys next time.
Yep. Firstborn.
Oh Lord.
Hey.
Trying to please you without unchanging. Ways from the past I was unfazed. Till you done raised. The new love got attacked like gunplay. So true.